Where are you now?
Working in Hawaii.
Kevin quickly responded, but a woman's laughter could be heard from behind the phone call. I could only feel irritation at Kevin, who lied so effortlessly. It was because of Kevin that Timothy ended up in such a state. He had no hair at all, his body completely shaven. It was too pitiful, unbearable to see. I'll definitely make you regret this, I swore while looking at Timothy. I'll make them experience hell. I was burning with revenge against them. I am Helen Martinez, a 55-year-old housewife. I live with my husband Kevin, who is 4 years older than me. Our only son, Timothy, has already started his career and moved out. Kevin works for a well-known company that appears in TV commercials. Perhaps because of that, he's a bit proud.
I work at such a big company, busting my butt for you guys. You should be crying with gratitude.
That's Kevin's favorite saying. In his view, those who work outside are superior, and those who stay at home are inferior. Because of this, I feel diminished whenever Kevin is around. I worried that Timothy might inherit Kevin's personality, but those fears were unfounded. Timothy grew up well and turned out to be a good kid. He has a bright and honest nature. His honesty makes him easy to deceive, which is his only flaw, but I love my kind-hearted Timothy. Recently, Timothy brought some wonderful news. He's getting married to a young woman named Fiona. They're expecting a child and decided to get married. The dual joy of Timothy's marriage and the baby filled me with happiness. I haven't met Fiona yet, but she's the girl Timothy chose. I want to warmly welcome her as a member of the Martinez family. If Fiona struggles with childcare after birth, I plan to help out without being too intrusive. Just as I was thinking this, Timothy made an unexpected request. He asked to live with us. Are you really saying you want to live at our place for a while? When I asked Timothy in surprise, he nodded seriously.
Yeah. Fiona is feeling anxious about raising the child. It's her first time, so it can't be helped. It would be great if you could help support us, Mom.
Fiona's parents live a plane ride away, so it seems impossible for her to go back to her hometown. That's why the idea came up that they could live with us for a while. However, for Fiona, raising a child in her in-laws' home might be uncomfortable. Is Fiona okay with that? I asked Timothy, feeling anxious. Normally, living with in-laws right after giving birth would make one feel uneasy. Then Timothy laughed and said,
Actually, it was Fiona's idea, so it's fine. Besides, she wants to get along well with you, Mom.
If that's what she wants, then it's okay. If it's Fiona's wish, there's nothing more to say. Plus, I have experience with raising children, so I should be able to support Fiona. But I wasn't sure what Kevin would say. There might be a chance he would oppose it. If so, only I could protect Fiona and the upcoming baby. So, no matter how much Kevin would oppose, I was determined to do my best. But ultimately, when I mentioned it to Kevin, he didn't object.
Why not? I'm all for having a young woman in the house. I'm tired of seeing the same old face.
His words were harsh, but at least he wasn't opposed to the idea. I breathed a sigh of relief, and then a month passed. Timothy brought Fiona home. Of course, Fiona was cradling their newborn baby in her arms.
We'll be staying here for a while, about 3 months, until things settle down, and then we might go back to our apartment.
Timothy spoke to us. I was listening with a smile, but when I looked at Fiona, I was at a loss for words.
Nice to meet you. This is Mary. Doesn't she look just like me? She's super cute, right?
Fiona showed off Mary while speaking to Kevin and me. Mary was quiet, not minding her mother's antics. Nice to meet you. Fiona looked like a woman of the night, wearing a low-cut shirt and a short skirt, her thighs fully visible, and her makeup perfectly done. She did not look like someone who had just been discharged from a maternity ward, but while I was taken aback, Kevin seemed quite pleased.
Well, Timothy sure picked a fine wife.
Kevin was looking at Fiona, grinning and leering. Then he kept ogling her neckline. Though Fiona's makeup was heavy, she looked cute, which must have passed Kevin's visual test. Moreover, Fiona didn't seem bothered at all by Kevin ogling her.
Thank you. Your dad has such a dignified presence. He's really handsome. If I hadn't married Timothy, I might have fallen for him.
Fiona said that as she batted her eyes at Kevin. Kevin seemed quite flattered by her comments. Hey, can you stop that? I couldn't ignore such inappropriate remarks. After all, Fiona is Timothy's wife. Such comments towards Kevin are unacceptable. It was far too impolite. However, as I was about to scold Fiona, Timothy stepped in to mediate.
Come on. Fiona just wants to get along well with my family. Don't be mad, Mom.
If you say so, Timothy. Fiona laughed off the situation.
Did I upset you? I didn't mean to.
She pressed her chest out as she spoke, and Kevin, watching her, laughed and said,
You should welcome such a young and pretty daughter-in-law. It's unseemly for an old lady to be jealous.
What do you mean by that? I was irritated by Kevin's remarks, but Fiona had just given birth. I thought it wasn't right to be too harsh on a woman right after childbirth. I had no choice but to back down. Reluctantly, I decided to keep quiet. Then, as expected, living with Fiona and the others began to create a tense situation. Even though the postpartum confinement period had passed, Fiona made no effort to take care of Mary at all. It became my job to feed her milk every 3 hours. Of course, I was the one sterilizing the nursing bottles too.
My milk isn't coming in well, and my body is still suffering from the birth. Could you do it instead, Mill? After all, you're a housewife with plenty of time, right?
Fiona would say this, dumping everything on me. She wouldn't change diapers or even pay attention when Mary cried. As a result, I ended up taking care of her at night as well. Because of the interrupted sleep, I was suffering from sleep deprivation. Normally, one would be considerate in such a situation. However, Fiona would just lie in bed and give orders.
Mother-in-law, I'm thirsty. Can you bring me a chilled Coke, please? Make sure it's ice cold.
In Fiona's hand was a bag of potato chips. The sheets on the bed were greasy and dirty, presumably where Fiona had wiped her chip-soiled hands. Sighing, I reprimanded Fiona. Fiona, please, enough is enough. Taking care of Mary is also a mother's duty. And since your confinement is over, you should start getting up and moving around. I told her sternly. Fiona's behavior was too much to ignore. Then Fiona's eyes welled up, and she began to cry.
Mother-in-law, that's so mean. Timothy is so busy with work, and I can't rely on him. If Timothy came home earlier, I wouldn't have to ask you.
Fiona sobbed pitifully. Indeed, Timothy had been working late recently due to overtime. He works for a small company and had taken time off for the birth. Surely, the backlog from that time is affecting him now. But that was to consider Fiona during her childbirth. And this was her response to Timothy's efforts at work. What a truly unbelievable daughter-in-law. I looked at her coldly as I said that to myself. Just then,
I'm home.
Kevin came back. Without hesitation, Fiona rushed to embrace him.
Dad, Mom's being awful. She's ordering me to move around when I'm not feeling well. I'm sad.
Then, with teary eyes, she looked up at Kevin.
To say such things to Fiona, that's just low.
Kevin was completely smitten with her. He glared at me as I held Mary.
You should be more considerate of Fiona. She's clearly suffering. Stop being nasty just because you're jealous of her beauty. Let's just ignore this mean old lady and order some food for delivery, just you and me.
What? I exclaimed in disbelief at Kevin's outrageous statement. Why does Kevin indulge Fiona so much? It makes no sense to me. Fiona seemed encouraged by Kevin's words.
Dad, I love you so much.
She said that and hugged Kevin again. Kevin beamed with pleasure. And then, Fiona sneakily stuck her tongue out at me when Kevin couldn't see. I was completely taken aback by Fiona's behavior. Thinking about continuing these days made me feel depressed. I don't know if this was the trigger, but after that, Fiona and Kevin's behavior became increasingly unbearable. Days of Fiona acting out and me reprimanding her, only for Kevin to defend her, continued. And still, Fiona neglected Mary's care. She wouldn't even change her diapers. Just when I was utterly exhausted by this situation, Timothy, who came home late from work, spoke to me.
Mom, I'm sorry about Fiona. I wish I could come home from work earlier and help more with Mary.
Timothy looked so sad as he spoke, and it pained my heart. Timothy is not to blame. Even though he always comes home late from work, he takes care of Mary. Sometimes he goes to work on almost no sleep. Timothy felt terribly guilty, though he was not at fault. Then Timothy hesitantly began to speak.
It's also my fault that Fiona is so attached to Dad.
What do you mean? I furrowed my brow and asked Timothy. His face grew even more pained.
Fiona wanted to marry a man with a high income, but I wanted to marry Fiona so badly that I told her. My dad works at a big company. I think Fiona's real target was Dad.
What are you saying? I turned pale at Timothy's revelation. Fiona is still in her 20s, but Kevin is almost in his 60s. Though it was hard to believe, Timothy's expression was serious. Given Fiona's behavior, it was likely the truth. As I struggled to find words to respond, Timothy gave a pained smile.
I'll try to convince Fiona to leave by next weekend. We've been imposing on you for 2 months already. So, Mom, I'm sorry, but can you bear with this a little longer?
All right. I can't imagine Fiona will just smoothly move out next weekend, given her current state. She's been all over Kevin, trying to impress him. But Timothy looked so distressed that I couldn't push the conversation any further. So, I had no choice but to endure it. A few days after that talk with Timothy, I decided to go to the beauty salon for the first time in a long while. After this salon, I planned to go shopping. Fortunately, Timothy had the day off from work and could take care of Mary. Even Fiona, unusually, spoke with a smile.
You've been under a lot of stress all this time. Please take this opportunity to relax.
Perhaps Fiona had a change of heart. Kevin also approached me with a smile.
You're always working so hard. Go buy something nice for yourself.
He handed me a crumpled $10 bill as he said that. I had been neglecting my own needs because of caring for Mary lately. Excited for some alone time, I set out to enjoy my day. Later, I fully enjoyed my time to myself, and in the evening, I returned home after finishing at the beauty salon and shopping. I even bought souvenirs for the welcoming family. For Kevin, I bought some sweets with the $10 bill he gave me. He would surely be pleased. Yeah, I'm home. I cheerfully opened the door, but the house was eerily silent. Oddly, only Timothy's shoes were there. Where is everyone? Kevin, Fiona. As I apprehensively approached the living room, I was met with a shocking sight. Timothy, what happened to your hair? For some reason, Timothy had shaved his head and was sleeping, holding Mary. His eyes looked swollen as if he had been crying, and even his eyebrows were shaved. When I shook Timothy in a semi-panic, he eventually opened his eyes.
Oh, Mom.
When Timothy opened his eyes, they were bloodshot, clearly from crying hard. I turned pale. What happened? Where are Kevin and Fiona? I asked desperately, and Timothy looked like he was about to cry again as he spoke.
Fiona screamed at me. It's your fault I'm suffering like this. Reflect on your actions as a man.
Timothy hung his head in sorrow. Listening further, it seems Fiona had a fit of rage when Mary wouldn't stop crying, and then took it out on Timothy, blaming him harshly. How awful. I regretted going to the beauty salon. I should never have left. I deeply regretted my actions.
Then Dad said, if a man needs to reflect, he should shave his head. He brought out the clippers and forcefully shaved me.
It appears Timothy tried to resist, but it was difficult being outnumbered 2-1. He was held down, powerless to stop them. Frustrated, I inadvertently bit my lip. In the end, Timothy was shaved completely, and the satisfied pair, Fiona and her accomplice, had apparently gone somewhere. Hearing Timothy's story filled me with immense anger. I immediately called Kevin. Fortunately, the call connected right away. "Where are you?" I managed to contain my anger as I asked him. Kevin just laughed carelessly.
"On a business trip in Hawaii."
He answered quickly, but I could hear a woman's laughter in the background. I was so irritated with Kevin for lying so casually. It was his fault Timothy ended up like this. Fiona was equally despicable. Timothy was completely bald, with all his body hair shaved off. It was truly too pitiful to behold. I'll definitely make you regret this. After hanging up the phone with Kevin, I looked at Timothy and vowed. Timothy looked very anxious. It's time for Kevin and his ilk to experience hell. How could they do this to Timothy? I was burning with revenge against them. Turning to a pale-faced Timothy, I asked, "What do you want to do, Timothy?" Fiona, a mother, left Mary behind and just took off. "Do you still want to be with someone like that?" Fiona has failed as a mother and is no longer needed as Timothy's wife. Even if she were to come back, she would likely cause more trouble, possibly even harm Mary. The thought of Mary being put in danger made me shudder. Too much negativity for a baby. After a moment of thought, Timothy finally spoke.
I'm going to divorce Fiona. I've always felt inadequate because my salary was low, but I can't risk putting Mary in danger anymore.
It seems this incident had deeply affected Timothy as well. At this point, there's nothing left to do but fight back thoroughly. I smiled and said to Timothy, "That's right, so I'll divorce Kevin too, and the three of us will leave this house."
Mom.
Tears were streaming from Timothy's eyes. I can only imagine how hard it was for him until I got back. Shortly after, I hugged Timothy and we both cried. Then, 2 weeks later, I received a call from Kevin on my cell phone. He kept calling even though I ignored him. Reluctantly, I decided to answer, but maintained a brusque demeanor. "What do you want?" Kevin sounded panicked.
Hey, what happened to our house? What's going on?
I could hear a woman screaming in the background. It seemed things were unfolding just as I had anticipated. I smirked.
Listen up. I've come back from Hawaii, and our house is gone. Where did you take Timothy and Mary?
Fiona screamed into the phone. It turned out that the laughter I had heard during that call with Kevin was indeed Fiona's.
"Hey, keep quiet for a second."
Kevin, flustered by Fiona's screaming, started trying to stop her. He probably still thought he could deceive his way out of this. I found their exchange amusing. "Oh really? You said you were away on a business trip. Took your son's wife on vacation. Huh? How could you do that with little Mary still so small?" I then deliberately spoke in an accusing tone to make them feel guilty. Kevin fell silent, having been hit where it hurt, but Fiona responded differently.
What? Jealous old hag. It's more fun for Dad to go on vacation with a young and pretty girl like Fiona than with someone like you.
Fiona confidently lashed out. It seemed she had stopped pretending altogether. She casually called me an old hag. I retorted,
Your shallow actions will cost you everything, not just the house.
The house was gone, but Kevin and Fiona were about to lose much more. Kevin suddenly realized the gravity of the situation.
Yeah, about the house. Why is it a vacant lot now? And there's a for sale sign.
Kevin sounded troubled. I responded, "Well, I leveled it and sold it to a real estate agent. The house was in my name, after all. No problem selling it, right?" Suddenly, Fiona began to panic.
What? That big house is that old lady's? Aren't you just a housewife? Why is it in your name if you have no income?
Fiona couldn't believe it and kept hurling insults at me. It seems Kevin hadn't told her the truth.
Hey, why isn't that house yours? Were you being blackmailed or something?
Fiona pressed Kevin for answers, but
Well,
he only gave vague replies. It must be embarrassing for Kevin to admit the truth. He couldn't quite bring himself to say it. I didn't want to prolong this conversation with him any longer, so I decided to just lay out the reality. My family is wealthy, you know. That house was built by my parents as part of my dowry.
What?
Fiona sounded incredulous. My family is well known in the area as an owning clan with ample land and money. Building a house was a trivial matter for them. Hearing this, Fiona turned on Kevin.
What's going on, Dad? You said that woman is under my thumb and she lives off my charity. Were you lying?
Kevin was taken aback by her accusations.
well,
It's pathetic how quickly he changes his demeanor when faced with a little pressure. I had been tolerating his behavior because he was my husband, but I couldn't care less about that now. I sighed and decided to tell them everything. While we're at it, let me tell you, Kevin has no money of his own. He just works at a well-known company. He's actually deep in debt.
Debt? You're kidding.
Fiona was flustered by my revelation. Kevin seemed quite panicked.
Helen, you promised not to say that. You've kept it a secret all this time.
Kevin yelled at me. The truth is, Kevin had debts. When I was busy with Timothy after his birth, Kevin, upset that I wasn't paying attention to him, had an affair. He always wanted to be the center of attention. Kevin showered his mistress with branded bags and jewelry. He was just a junior employee at a big company at the time. He didn't have the means to afford luxury brands. But Kevin, ever the show-off, repeatedly went into debt to please his mistress as she demanded more. By the time I found out, he had amassed hundreds of thousands in debt. When I told Fiona this, she fell silent. She probably never imagined Kevin had debts, considering how well he seemed to be living. And Kevin, seeing Fiona fall silent, desperately tried to placate her.
Money? I can make as much as I want. I'm a division manager at a major company.
However, Fiona seemed unconvinced and wouldn't even discuss it. She must be quite shaken inside. So, I continued to reveal more. That's not all. Kevin frequents the entertainment districts quite a bit and has been playing around a lot. I don't know about those debts though. I wonder how much he has managed to repay. I chuckled confidently as I said that. I could hear Fiona grinding her teeth over the phone, clearly frustrated. Currently, Kevin hardly contributes to the living expenses. He's so overwhelmed by his debts that he came crying to me.
We'll have debt collectors at our house if this continues. That wouldn't be good for Timothy, right? Please, take on all the living expenses.
That's what Kevin said when he pushed the responsibility of paying for living expenses onto me. Normally, a housewife like me couldn't pay for all that. I would have to start working. Fiona finally spoke up, seemingly thinking the same.
Why are you able to pay for living expenses? Even if your family is wealthy, they surely wouldn't support you financially every month, right?
Indeed.
Kevin, pointed out by Fiona, seemed to realize the fact for the first time. He knows so little about his own wife. How can he be so disinterested in me? I said in exasperation. I have rental income from apartments. That's why I receive a steady amount of money every month.
What do you mean? I've never heard about this.
Kevin exclaimed loudly in response. Our family has been landowners for generations, owning lots of vacant land around this area. But just holding onto vacant land would incur property taxes, and it would be a waste to let it sit unused. So, my parents decided to build apartments on the vacant lands, and each family member, including me, manages them. Although the construction of the apartments was financed through loans, the rental income exceeds the monthly mortgage repayments. Hearing this, Kevin's voice trembled.
So, you earn more than me. What am I even here for? I could have paid off the debts with that money.
Fiona sounded incredibly frustrated.
I targeted you because I thought you had high income. All this was for nothing. I would have been better off sticking with Timothy. I was sure I could have squeezed some money out of you then.
They continued to probe about my rental income. I told the two, who seemed to think only about money. Can you stop already? It's over for both of you. I'm getting a divorce and will be asking you for alimony.
Alimony.
Hearing about alimony, Kevin recoiled.
Alimony? I have debts and no money. How am I supposed to pay that?
Fiona also pleaded in a shaken voice.
That's right. I don't have an income either.
Didn't you receive branded bags and such? Just sell those. Fiona must have received a lot from Kevin. He even took her to Hawaii. As I spoke in a dismayed voice, Kevin said,
Those bags were gifts from me anyway. Return them. I can use them to pay off some of my debts.
It seems Kevin was really desperate, not caring about appearances anymore. But Fiona retorted without yielding.
No way. I got them, so I'm keeping them. And it's so tacky to ask for them back.
Fiona scoffed at Kevin. Then Kevin seemed irritated and said,
What? As if a woman who only knows how to pile on makeup has a say.
What about you? You're the one with debts.
They began to argue heatedly, and I sighed. Talking with these two any further is just a waste of time. Goodbye then. I gently hung up the phone. After that, Kevin and I went through with the divorce. It ended up involving lawyers, but initially, Kevin was quite reluctant.
Isn't there any way other than divorce? I have debts, and my salary is gone after I make the payments. Can't I get some of the rental income?
Kevin pleaded tearfully at the lawyer's office, but I had no sympathy for him. After all, the debts are because of your affairs, right? It's only right that you pay them off yourself, I told Kevin firmly. Kevin lamented how terrible it was, but the lawyer calmly advised him.
Kevin, you don't contribute to the household expenses, and you've racked up debts from affairs. You haven't been involved in housework or raising Timothy either. What exactly have you been doing for your family?
Challenged sternly by the lawyer, Kevin fell silent. He usually acts big around me and Timothy, but he's quiet in front of someone authoritative like a lawyer. I really think Kevin is a small man. Unable to say anything more, Kevin ended up signing the divorce papers as the lawyer suggested. Right after Kevin signed, I handed him a document. Looking at the document, Kevin was shocked.
What is this?
I responded calmly. It's the claim amount for alimony. Kevin slammed the table in anger.
What is this amount? It's too high. People don't usually ask for alimony for an affair like this.
I had demanded $200,000 in alimony. I'm aware it's an exorbitant amount, but it's justified given the circumstances. It includes the household expenses you never paid. Compared to what I've paid, it's actually quite reasonable. Kevin had stopped contributing anything to the household expenses, leaving me to cover all the utility and food costs. And yet, I was also responsible for all the housework and raising our child. Since Timothy and the others returned, I have been tirelessly caring for Mary without sleep. During that period, Kevin was having an affair with Fiona. It's truly despicable. When I pointed this out, Kevin was at a loss for words.
Maybe that's true, but surely this amount is too much. Can't you give a little discount?
I've never heard of a discounted alimony. I was taken aback, but played my final card. Did you forget you shaved Timothy's head? I could file a police report, you know. At that, Kevin's expression immediately turned anxious.
That would be a problem.
Seizing the moment, the lawyer pressed on.
What you've done, even if it's within the family, is inexcusable. If a police report is filed, wouldn't that affect your job?
Kevin works at a well-known company, and if Timothy's situation becomes public, he risks being fired. After some time, Kevin resignedly said,
All right, I'll accept the $200,000 alimony, but we're still family, right? I can still see you and Timothy occasionally, can't I?
What nerve to say that now, after putting Timothy in such danger? He's likely hoping to gain sympathy later on to negotiate the alimony. I firmly told him, Timothy and I will never meet with you again. Once we're divorced, you're just a stranger, and don't expect to see your grandchild either.
What? Don't joke with me.
Kevin hurled insults at me, but I ignored them and left the lawyer's office. The payment method for the alimony would be handled by the lawyer. I never want to deal with Kevin again. Later on, Kevin was fired from his job. Although I hadn't filed a police report, it seems the company found out anyway. Fiona was the cause. After divorcing Timothy and losing custody of Mary, Fiona tried to rely on Kevin, waiting for him in front of his workplace. But with all his debts and alimony payments, Kevin was stretched too thin. He brushed off awaiting Fiona, who, in a fit of rage, loudly revealed everything about him at the scene. Kevin tried to silence her, but it was too late. Other employees heard, and soon the whole company knew. Kevin has been fired from his job, and now only his debts remain. He might be chased by debt collectors, and is likely to face a thorny path ahead. The same goes for Fiona. She is being sued for alimony by Timothy. Even selling all her designer bags wouldn't cover the payments. Moreover, I heard she has a substantial tab from visiting host clubs before marrying Timothy. They are still unpaid. It's likely that soon, Fiona too will be in a situation similar to Kevin's. Since then, I have bought an apartment with the money, and Timothy, Mary, and I are living there together. Mary is adorable, just like Timothy. Timothy's hair has grown back and looks natural now. He's completely recovered.
Mom, I'm sorry for always causing you trouble. I have this child now, and I'll get back on my feet.
Mary is growing up healthy. Her first birthday is coming up soon. I'm committed to making her happy, just Timothy and me. That's what I vowed.